Hi, welcome back to another video. Tight hamstrings seems to be at the forefront of complaints for a lot of people. Well, this is not something I have statistic on, but after many years in the fitness world, I can confidently say most people think the hamstrings are tight. The general consensus for most people is when the hamstrings are tight, they should be stretched. It makes sense, right? But no matter how much they stretch those hamstrings, there is no significant change. I will explain to you in this video why fixing tight hamstrings with stretching is not that simple, and the differences between a muscle being tight and a muscle being short. And if you like this video and find this useful, please click the like button, please leave your comments below and share this video. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my future weekly video release. Please also subscribe to this channel. This is completely free of charge, but will help the channel to grow. Thank you. Let me first explain to you the differences between a muscle being tight and a muscle being short. A muscle that is short is one that actually lacks length. This may be caused when a muscle is frequently positioned in a shortened position, and the connective tissues adapt and shortens. And a great example of this is when your hip flexors are being shortened due to you sitting for a prolonged period of time. A muscle is tight when it holds excessive tension. Let's get back to your hamstrings. A lot of people complain of that constant feeling of tightness in the hamstrings. Don't get me wrong, you can absolutely have short hamstrings and benefit from some form of foam rolling and stretching. However, if you are the person who is constantly battling that endless cycle of stretching your hamstrings only to get about 2 minutes of relief before feeling your hamstrings are tight again, you may be doing more harm than good. Let me explain this further. Every structural issues in your body can be traced back to your pelvis in one way or another. When the pelvis is in normal alignment, everything else up and down the chain is balanced. The way the body is engineered is that equal muscle tension pulling in each direction, thus keeping our pelvis aligned. For simplicity, let's think about the pelvis being pulled by two strings, one attached to the posterior side of the pelvis and one to the anterior. If your pelvis is not stable, you can end up with too much of a tilt. This causes muscle that connect to the pelvis to become too long or too short, depending on which way the pelvis tilts. You should have a natural lumbar curvature that is a lordotic curve. But for those who sit for a long period of time daily, the hip flexors are tight and the pelvis rotates forward into an anterior pelvic tilt, with the hamstrings being stretched long and tight and the quadriceps shortened. The anterior tilting of the pelvis exaggerates the lumbar curve, resulting in hyperlordosis. And conversely, those with too much of a posterior pelvic tilt develop a flat back and butt that causes the quads to become too long and tight and the hamstrings to become too short. Both too much anterior or posterior pelvic tilt is a problem for a number of other reasons. Most importantly, muscle imbalances, which can lead to a decrease of power during the gait cycle, instability of the pelvis that can cause back pain, and quad dominance, which is when the runner uses the quadriceps muscles too much because the hamstrings and glutes are not firing in the proper order. Therefore, if your hamstrings are tight due to an anterior pelvic tilt, stretching is not the solution. This is because the hamstrings are trying to provide a much needed stability to the pelvis. Tight hamstrings is more the symptom than the cause. The nervous system increases the tension through the hamstrings because the core and glutes are losing the tug of war. In this particular case, the hamstrings becomes the victim rather than the cause. Tight hamstrings is a symptom of the pelvis being in an anterior tilt. By continuing to stretch a muscle that is already stretched out, you're accentuating the problem. Stretching a muscle and over-irritating scar tissue can create more pain or a deeper tear, and only stretching your hamstrings deepen the imbalances between your hamstrings, your quads, and your pelvis. The best way I can explain this is by thinking of a rubber band. Stretch it as far as you can, and the band itself becomes tight. This is exactly what happens to the muscle of your hamstrings, making your hamstrings more susceptible to a pull or tear. How long you sit plays a big role in whether or not you are actually making your hamstrings long and tight. Now the question is, what should you do when your hamstrings are tight when you have an anterior pelvic tilt? First, you need to balance the excessively tight muscles with some soft tissue work that target chronic tension and build up scar tissues. This will help to give the muscles the correct amount of slack or tension balance. If your hamstrings are long and tight due to an anterior pelvic tilt, this means that instead of stretching them, you should actually be strengthening them so that they can counteract the anterior pelvic tilt position. Your hip flexors are tight due to prolonged sitting, and you need to stretch your hip flexors, and a great hip flexor stretch is the triplanar stretch. Kneel on the mat with both knees, then place your right foot forward. Keeping your torso upright, slowly lean forward until you feel a comfortable stretch through the groin and the top of your thigh. Raise your right hand up to the ceiling to deepen the stretch in the sagittal plane. Now stretch your right arm to the left, stretching your hip flexors in the frontal plane. Now rotate your torso and stretch your right arm to the left to stretch your hip flexors in the transverse plane. You then need other corrective exercises and strengthening program to stabilize the weak muscles and maintain optimal pelvic position. You need to stretch the tight muscles of your lower back and strengthening your core and glutes. I've made 2 videos on the corrective exercises to fix an anterior pelvic tilt. Please take a look. The link for these 2 videos are on the description below. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like this video, please click the like button. Please leave your comments below and share this video. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my future weekly video release. Please also subscribe to this channel. This is free of charge but will help the channel to grow. If you're interested in improving your health and fitness or losing weight, if you suffer from or wish to prevent back pain, please take a look at my book, which is now available from Amazon worldwide. Thank you.